If you ventured into the deep recesses of Instagram in 2017, you may well have encountered this haunting face, sunken cheeks, corpse-like skin, an upturned nose, and eyes that seemed far too big for the skull they sit in. This was 19-year-old LazyMasquerade, an Iranian influencer who began posting under the pseudonym Sahataba. Her early content wasn't anything unusual and mostly consisted of selfies and glam shots. But slowly, something changed. The young woman seemingly became obsessed with extreme body modifications. With each new set of photos, her face became more angular, more uncanny. And by the end of the year, she looked more like a Tim Burton character than a real person. And that was completely by design. Lazyma had a strong desire to look like her fashion icon, the Corpse Bride, and had undergone numerous cosmetic surgeries to achieve these results. Now, you may be thinking that the horror of this entry has to do with Lazyma's transformation, but the reality is that her whole appearance was a facade. As she would later admit, she had used makeup filters and Photoshop to alter her face. For Lazyma, Sahataba was nothing more than a character, a creative outlet to experiment, express herself, and build a fan base. And it worked. At its peak, her account had amassed an impressive 486,000 followers. Tabloids began running stories about her, stating that she had had over 50 surgeries. Western media dubbed her the zombie Angelina Jolie, a name that captured people's imaginations and drew more traffic to her page. Her posts were flooded with comments, accusations, and morbid fascination. For many, she was yet another internet curiosity. For others, a nightmare come to life. But for the government, she was a problem. Unfortunately for Lazyma, Iran's online sphere is tightly controlled. At the time, Instagram was the only social media platform still operating, the last digital bastion where people could express themselves with relative freedom. But the last thing the government wanted was for its people, especially its young women, to be doing that. On October 5th, 2019, Mia's Instagram account vanished. Her fans were stunned to learn that she had been arrested in Tehran on charges of blasphemy, instigating violence, illegally acquiring income, violating the national dress code, and encouraging young people to commit corruption. A judiciary official even told the TAS, an IM news agency, that her vulgarity and promotion of abnormality are a threat to public morals. 3 days later, Instagram arrests Sarah Afsharian, Sarah Shariat Madarai, and Milo Aveo Motai were arrested. Lazyma and these other influencers hadn't done anything to attack the government, but their online personas were enough to bring the hammer down. Soon after, on October 22nd, a state-run TV interview aired. Mia appeared veiled, her face blurred out. The presenters introduced her as a zombie suffering from an, quote, abnormal personality and mental state. They pointed out that her parents were divorced, implying that broken families make broken children, clearly under duress. Lazyma recited a confession, explaining how social media had ruined her life and how she regretted chasing fame. At the time, the televised shaming of Instagram arrests had become a common occurrence in Iran, and many believed that the government was using it to lay the groundwork for a complete social media blackout. In December 2020, Lazyma was sentenced to 10 years in prison. While behind bars, she contracted COVID-19 and came very close to losing her life. Her lawyers begged for a temporary release so that she could get proper medical care, but their words fell on deaf ears. After 14 months behind bars, half of Lazyma's charges were dropped. Her jail sentence was converted into bail. Following her release, she returned to state TV where her real face was publicly revealed for the first time. As you can see from this unaltered footage, though she clearly had some work done, she was far from the undead caricature that the internet had come to know. Again, she expressed regret, saying that she had gone into prison as Sahataba, but emerged once again as LazyMasquerade, implying that her social media days were behind her. She blamed her pursuit of fame on mental illness and hinted that she'd been pushed into the role by the media frenzy around her. She praised the judge as merciful and said that she now wanted to live a quiet life away from cameras. Thus far, it's been a very quiet life. After that interview, Lazyma vanished yet again. This has led millions to wonder what became of her. Had she truly been set free? Was she still a political prisoner? Or had she, like her account, been permanently deleted? To this day, Iran continues to employ extensive monitoring of social media. Between 2011 and 2023, at least 1,300 people were arrested for posting online content, mostly because they showed themselves dancing or casually dressed. Many of them received hefty fines, prison sentences, and even lashes. There's no doubt that Fatima's pictures were uncanny, but the true terror lies in what happened after she posted them, when she was harshly punished for the simple act of expressing herself outside the rigid, arbitrary rules that Iran imposes on personal social media use. When the state turned her into a scapegoat and a spectacle, she wasn't the monster. The system was. Instagram was banned in Iran in 2022 and 2022. It's currently back online, but only temporarily. I first came upon this entry in a recent Real Maguire video. He covers dark internet topics from around the globe, but they're all really well researched, and he has a unique presenting style and a really calming voice, which I think suits this type of content perfectly. Be sure to check him out through the links down below. Doppelgangers, mirror images, look-alike so uncanny they could fool even your closest relative, have long been a staple of folklore, myth, and superstition. Encountering one isn't just strange, it's extremely ominous. Crossing paths with your double is said to herald great misfortune, with some stories going so far as to say that we all have an evil twin out there searching for us, hunting for us, with a goal to end our lives. But those are, of course, just stories. With 8 billion people walking the earth, it's inevitable that a few of them will look near identical to you. The odds of you bumping into a psycho version of yourself is low. But what if, when you did, it wasn't just a funny coincidence, wasn't a mere bad omen? What if it was a death sentence? On the afternoon of August 16th, 2022, Shahraban K., a German Iraqi beautician, left her family home in Munich, telling her parents that she was going to rendezvous with her estranged husband. The pair had separated but were apparently meeting to straighten out their fraught relationship. By nightfall, the 23-year-old still hadn't returned home. Calls to her went to voicemail. Messages went unread. Concerned, her loved ones decided to search for her. Driving through Ingolstadt, the Bavarian city where she went to meet her ex, they spotted something chilling. Shahraban's black Mercedes parked awkwardly near a wooden stretch on the banks of the Danube. At first it was just the sight of the car that made their stomachs tighten. But then they noticed it, a dark, viscous stain running down from the passenger side door. Peering through the window, they saw what looked like a person slumped unnaturally across the back seat. Whoever it was wasn't moving. Officers arrived and forcibly gained access to the vehicle. The lifeless young woman on the back seat was drenched in blood. More than 50 stab wounds covered her and were concentrated around the neck, upper torso, and head. Indeed, her face had been savagely mutilated, as if someone wanted to destroy not just her life, but her identity. They ran the license plates and confirmed that the car was registered to Shahraban K., but they still needed confirmation. Thus, they solemnly explained the situation to Shahraban's parents and asked them to identify their daughter's body, even though the young woman's face had been obliterated. They took one look at her hair, her build, her olive skin, and her clothes, and tearfully said that there was no question about it. The victim was Shahraban. Suspicion, of course, fell on Shahraban's ex-husband, supposedly the last person to see her alive. However, that lead soon evaporated when the coroner dropped a bombshell. DNA and fingerprint analysis confirmed that the body didn't match Shahraban K. Through forensic testing, the victim was later identified as Khadija OO, a 23-year-old Algerian beauty blogger from the Heilbronn area. She had vanished the same day her body had been found. The resemblance between her and Shahraban was striking. They had the same long dark hair, the same complexion, makeup style, fashion sense, facial structure, and age. The authorities started hearing rumors that Shahraban had been seen driving around Ingolstadt and entering a pizzeria. Less than 48 hours later, detectives made an announcement. They had arrested Shahraban K. and her Kosovan boyfriend, Shikil K, on suspicion of homicide. After taking the pair into custody, investigators began looking through their phones. They soon learned that Shahraban had created numerous fake Instagram accounts and posed as men and women to DM strangers. Not just any strangers. Girls who looked like her. In the weeks before the murder, Investigators say that Shahraban contacted Khadija using a string of fake profiles. First, she posed as a man connected to the music industry, claiming Khadija had the perfect look for an upcoming rap video for the artist Luna. She even gave details about the supposed shoot in Offenburger. Khadija, suspicious of the offer, messaged the real Luna on Instagram, who confirmed that she was being scammed. When that failed, Shahraban switched tactics, now pretending to be a female beauty professional. She offered Khadija a free cosmetic treatment in exchange for the promotion of her salon. This time the offer sounded genuine safe, and Khadija agreed to meet with her husband. On August 16th, 2022, Shahraban and her boyfriend drove to Eppingen in their black Mercedes and met with Khadija for the first and last time. The victim got into their car, expecting to be taken to her beauty appointment. Instead, they drove her to a secluded forest area between Heilbronn and Ingolstadt. There, the two killers struck Khadija in the head and viciously stabbed her 56 times, disfiguring her face to mask any differences between victim and killer. By all outward appearances, Shahraban seemed to be leading an ordinary life. So what on earth inspired her to take someone else's in cold blood? Well, although Shahraban's Instagram feed made her life seem perfect, behind the carefully curated selfies was a storm of personal problems. Conflicts with her family caused by her failing marriage and a strong desire to vanish, to fake her own death and go into hiding. By killing someone who looked like her and leaving the body in her own vehicle, Shahraban hoped that her family and, indeed, the world would believe that she was dead. Her husband would take the heat while she and her boyfriend started a new life elsewhere. And yet, despite spending months planning the scheme, neither Shahraban nor her accomplice considered that the police would test the victim's DNA. They also naively assumed that Khadija didn't have any loved ones who would report her missing. Following a review of the recovered chat logs, investigators learned that Shahraban had also tried to hire a contract killer to eliminate her former brother-in-law, who opposed her plans for divorce, going so far as to give the hitman a €5,000 deposit. The job was thankfully never carried out. If that weren't enough, in the lead up to their trial, her boyfriend Shikiwaya tried to hire a fellow inmate to murder key witnesses. Again, the plan fell through. The trial, which began in 2023 with all witnesses still breathing, lasted nearly a year and involved over 50 days of testimony. Prosecutors laid out how Shahraban had messaged multiple people on Instagram before settling on Khadija, describing her in messages as the ideal doppelganger. In January 2025, both Shahraban and Shikiwaya were sentenced to life. The court classified the killing as being of particular gravity, meaning that parole, which is usually considered after about 15 years in Germany, likely won't be granted. This case is a grim reminder of how social media, while connecting people, can also be used as a hunting ground. It's hard to comprehend the coldness required to scroll through profiles, compare faces, and think to yourself, yeah, this one could die in my place. No doubt there are several candidates living ordinary lives in Germany, completely oblivious of how close they had come to being Shahraban's target. All for the simple crime of looking like her. On the afternoon of July 22nd, 2024, 14-year-old Amelia Riabi was out shopping with her mother when she received a call from her 15-year-old friend, Milak, inviting her to a sleepover in Landskogen, a small town in Skåne, Sweden. It was being hosted by a girl that she had never met, but Milak assured her that another girl, 13-year-old Rafala, would also be there. The trio had met at Sis Hasselholm, a foster home where they had spent much of their youth, and though they had had their differences at the institution, they'd stayed in contact after their placements finished and had become close. Amelia had been the target of bullies at Hasselholm because of her soft nature, and as such, she didn't have many friends her age. She didn't want to let the two she had down, but the journey was a long and unfamiliar one, involving a bus ride into trains. She just moved into her mother's new house into Lab no more than 10 days earlier and was concerned about taking the wrong route. Milak continued to pressure her over the phone, repeatedly telling her to hurry up. In a daze, Amelia asked her mum for directions and set off to pack her overnight bag. She brought with her the usual supplies, a blanket, makeup remover, extra clothes, as well as a gift card that she had received for her birthday. Her plan was to give it to her friends, who she knew had been dealt a rough hand. During her journey, Amelia sent her mother a text. "Sorry, Mum, for behaving badly because I was stressed. I love you and you are my life." Accompanying the text was a video of herself on the train, showing off her makeup and fake nails that she had applied during the journey. Anna shared it to her Instagram story. The caption read, "My beautiful on her way to her first pajama party." This Instagram video was the last that she would ever receive from her daughter. Amelia never returned home. Her body was found in an industrial area the following day, lying in a wooded area just off a pedestrian path, partially concealed by branches. Her injuries were immediately apparent, the Tito stab wounds, mostly to the torso and legs. Silver tape bound her wrists and ankles. A strip was also wrapped loosely around her neck, concealing further puncture marks. It quickly became apparent that Amelia's quote-unquote friends, Milak and Rafala, had been boasting in a group chat about taking her life. They even shared recordings of the murder, which showed them taunting their victim with a knife while she struggled. Milak and Rafala were arrested. At first, they denied killing Amelia, but under questioning, their story crumbled apart. According to investigators, Milak lured Amelia to the rail yard, telling her that a boy she liked wanted to meet her there. When they arrived, Milak coughed twice, a signal for Rafala to emerge from hiding. She wore a homemade mask over her face, but Amelia recognized her immediately and ran to give her a hug. Instead, she was punched in the face. Accounts differ on small details, but both girls agreed that Amelia fell to the ground and Rafala climbed on top of her, hitting her repeatedly. The girls bound and gagged Amelia with tape and took turns stabbing her with a hunting knife. Rafala admitted that she had delivered the fatal blow. The pair then fled the scene, throwing Amelia's overnight bag into the sea. The next morning, Rafala called Amelia's phone 12 times and sent her a text at 7. "Daroam, rest in peace, my sweetie. I love you. I'm so proud of you." It's not clear why she did this. The two killers initially tried to claim that their actions weren't premeditated. They described how their plan to scare Amelia had gotten out of hand. However, phone records showed that the duo watched a snuff film prior to meeting with Amelia, in which a person had their throat cut, and that they had deliberately stolen the duct tape and knife from a dollar store earlier that day. Many online had speculated whether they were jealous that Amelia had finally moved back in with her mother. Official court documents state that their motive was revenge. Apparently, Amelia had made a comment about Rafala's brother during their time in foster care, a comment which Rafala perceived as an insult. She had been simmering ever since. When asked if she felt any regret for her actions, Rafala coldly replied, "Sometimes I think I should, but mostly I don't to the bedroom with her husband." As for Milak, she had passively gone along with the plan, claiming that she was scared of what her accomplice might do if she refused. Low text messages between the two indicate that she consciously chose to assist Rafala. Psychological evaluation showed different personalities, called dominance versus fearful compliance, but neither was considered mentally ill. In court, Milak denied murder, but admitted to aggravated assault and robbery for stealing Amelia's bag. Rafala, appearing via video link, also denied murder, but prosecutors were clear. Both girls had planned and carried out the killing. In February 2025, both girls were found guilty of Amelia's slaying. Milak was sentenced to closed juvenile care for 2 years and 2 months, while Rafala couldn't be punished due to her age. Sentences were limited by Swedish juvenile law, sparking debate about whether the justice system is equipped to handle crimes of such brutality committed by minors. Amelia's mother, Anna, said that she wasn't allowed to see her daughter's body. She described Amelia as deeply kind, empathetic, and always willing to help people, often at her own expense. "My daughter was an angel who always stood up for everyone," she said. Maybe this world wasn't ready for her. When the video evidence recorded by Milak and Rafala surfaced on the web by sick individuals repeatedly spammed Anna with the footage of her daughter's final moments and, apparently, as some sort of dark joke. This case left Sweden stunned, not only because of the savagery of the crime, but because of how young the perpetrators were. This wasn't the work of shadowy strangers or hardened criminals. It was a betrayal carried out by the people, the children, that Amelia trusted most. And tragically, what should have been a rite of passage, her first ever slumber party, became her last night alive. Seeing how you've clicked on this video, I'm sure you know what you're getting yourself into. But just in case, fair warning. I'll be showing and discussing images that some viewers may find unsettling. Starting with this. If you've dipped your toes into the dark waters of the World Wide Web, then you've almost certainly encountered this image one, or perhaps 200 times. Known as Dolphin, JPG, it's been lurking on the net for nearly 2 decades and in that time has become a staple of internet horror, appearing in countless bait-and-switch screamer videos and blessing many of us with our first heart attack. Fun times. Given how ubiquitous Dolphin has become, it's strange to think that for most of its existence, nobody knew where it originated, who made it, and crucially, what raw ingredients went into crafting it. If you're a lost media obsessive like me, then that's the kind of mystery you can really sink your teeth into. Let's start by analyzing the image itself. In short, it's your standard screamer thumbnail. A horrifying white face with 2 bulbous eyes that stare into your soul and a crooked mouth with bloody gums. The image has clearly been processed, with the distorted features having been pasted on top of a base photo, though it's unclear whether that was a close-up shot of a human face, an inanimate object, or a panel from a manga. Through a combined internet search effort, the first use of this particular edit was traced back to an old Japanese chain letter. On Christmas Day, 2005, a post appeared on Xblock, JP made by user Another R. For the first time, I was able to have a normal Christmas. Oshin, the 3-day weekend is over and I'll be going back to work tomorrow. I'll leave you a Christmas present. Further, if you don't post this image on another bulletin board within 1 hour, something terrible will happen at the end of the year. There are people who have died because they didn't share this picture. Needless to say, the image started appearing on various platforms and gained a cult-like status on Wakanel and later Nico. But with both of those sites still being in their infancy, it failed to capture the attention of the wider internet. In fact, it wouldn't be until 2007 when it reappeared on the now infamous Kawaii-ku's Set E thread that Dolphin really took off. On December 3rd of that year, a Tuchana known made the following post. This child is scary as hell, so you guys have to somehow use your power to make it cute. As I've mentioned in past videos, around that same time, the Japanese internet was going crazy for Kawaii-ku's Set E, a creative, collaborative challenge where users turned cursed images kawaii using Photoshop. This particular thread exploded in popularity, so much so that in Japan, the image itself is commonly known as Kawaii-ku's Set E in English, Make Me Cute. Countless altered versions of the JPG were created and shared, some of them becoming famous in their own right. Dolphin became such a widespread meme in Japan that whenever users saw it, they'd inevitably respond with phrases like "you again," or "the same as always." Like with most memes that explode overnight, Dolphin became so overused that people were tired of seeing it. With the image having run its course in its native homeland, it was only a matter of time before it began its journey around the world. The image finally made its Western debut in the form of the English-language creepypasta, Gurgles and Bugman. Originally posted on our No Sleep by Read It user Won't Think Straight, Gurgles and Bugman was posted on the creepypasta wiki in mid-2014 alongside Dolphin. JPG. Someone, presumably Won't Think Straight into the Bacon, had removed the Japanese text and used the image to portray the character of Gurgles, a clown so emaciated that he resembled a manic, grinning skeleton. The story revolved around a fictional, candid camerate EV show in which Gurgles and his sidekick, Bugman, snuck into people's homes and hid in the corner of their rooms. Once their victims fell asleep, the pair would crawl into bed beside them and paralyze them by sticking a sharp straw into their neck. Each episode ended with Bugman drinking from the straw and Gurgles plastering his pale face across the screen and whispering, "See you again soon." Though a little derivative, the creepypasta did gain a small following and introduced a few people to Dolphin. But the image didn't really capture global attention until it became the face of a seriously worrying Facebook page. In early June 2015, a still unknown individual or group created a Facebook account under the name Meiichi no Barbas Hinosiet. Try saying that 3 times fast. Meiichi no Barbas is a Latin name meaning copper-bearded, and Hino is a Greek prefix meaning one. As for Siaed, it could be a misspelling of the Latin suffix side, meaning killer, homicide, patriarchide, for example. So, Perhaps the account name could be roughly translated into Copper-Bearded Destroyer of One. Maybe. Honestly, it's a bit of a stretch. But the name's not what we're focusing on here. What's more important is the account's profile picture. Look familiar. The LazyMasquerade page quickly gained notoriety for sending horrifying images of gore to their youngest followers via private messages and sharing coordinates directing them to remote locations, like the outskirts of this hexagonal comm station in Western Australia. These coordinates often included cryptic, backwards messages like "Finis human it is, the end of humanity." Taking things from edgy to criminal, the account would even share real-life CP videos on their timeline, which would autoplay as you scrolled past them. Most of the posts were made in Spanish, and the account quickly went viral in the Hispanic community, before inevitably being taken down by Facebook. As such, you can no longer visit the page today. Not that you'd want to, but a couple of safe-for-work screenshots are still catalogued in the Wayback Machine. Living up to its cursed status, the page's profile picture spread like a virus throughout the darkest reaches of the web thereafter. But it still needed a name. In English, Make Me Cute lacked context. Outside of Japan, Gurgles was a bit too cheesy, and Ahe no Barbas he no si Ed was too much of a mouthful. And though some do still call them those names to this day, most people began calling it Doll Thing. JPG, a name that would prove quite fitting. Now world famous, Doll Thing became a popular screamer image, popping up unexpectedly in videos, web comics, and online games. And though not as popular as it once was, it is still considered one of the most infamous and, in a strange sense, beloved horror images of all time, sitting alongside heavyweights like Smile Dog, The Rake, and the Russian Sleep Experiment. Although we've covered the evolution of Doll Thing, Make Me Cute, Gurgles, Ahe no Barbas he no si Ed, whatever you want to call it, we've yet to touch on its inception. The image is clearly a mishmash of two or elements, an original background image and at least one overlay. The saturation appears to have been played around with, too. This earlier Reddit had been found floating around online, but it could hardly be considered the original. And though this even earlier version was later unearthed, it too had seen alterations. It wouldn't be until 2021 that legendary internet sleuth, the Subo, shared this image with his viewers. This is undoubtedly the original image that served as the basis for Doll Thing. The background and proportions match perfectly, as does the nose. It's a close-up shot of a particularly unnerving Ichimitsu doll. One of the Subaru's viewers had found it in a Futaba channel log dated before the first edit of Doll Thing appeared online. Given the lighting, framing, and background fabric, many suspected that the photo had been taken from an online auction listing. Tracking things back further, in 2024, this image was discovered, found hidden in the archives of a blog titled "I'm Looking at You." Old Checkered Dawn and Trouble. Coincidentally, it was found by Discord user Sufyan while searching for the original Jeff the Killer image. It's low resolution, but clearly is the same Ichimitsu doll set against the same fabric. The text confirms that the doll was listed as a junk item on Yahoo auctions back in 2004. Recently discovered links also show that the item was discussed on an older occult thread, which, although a little eerie, does go to show that this creepy little face was destined to become a horror meme. The final parts of this mystery to crack are those eyes in the mouth. Where were they sourced from? Well, on March 31st, 2005, Gisatius user Ryo Oda shared a GIF on his personal blog, an edited cutting from the Japanese visual novel To Heart To. In it, Y and a text appears over a background image before cutting to a jump scare, one consisting of To Familiar Eyes and one familiar to the grin. Given that the first edit of Doll Thing appeared on X Block later that same year, it stands to reason that someone, likely another R, found the close-up shot of the doll in a forum where people were discussing it, realized it was ripe for horror treatment, and altered it by cutting and pasting the Too Hard to Screamer. He spread it via a chain letter, with the image later getting picked up by Make Me Cute enthusiasts, and the rest, as they say, is history. Strange to think that some unsuspecting person just listed their dolls in an online auction one day, hoping to get rid of what they considered a piece of junk, only for it to be transformed and become a mystery that endured for 2 decades. The internet truly does work in curious ways. Honestly though, I think this original photo actually makes me feel more uneasy than the Doll Thing edit. Growing up, I found it hard to take this version too seriously since it reminded me of those old, rather good, calm animations, and I always half expected him to start singing about the moon. But for others, he wasn't still as the stuff of nightmares, responsible for countless hours of lost sleep, and there's no denying that dull thing. JPG left an indelible mark on the internet's collective psyche, for better or for worse. When it comes to urban legends, Japan really is the gift that keeps on giving. For instance, I'm sure you're all familiar with this image. It's been circulating online for years at this point, having been attached to countless creepypastas, but without doubt, it's most famously associated with the urban legend, Tomino's Hell. For those who aren't aware, Tomino no Yigoku, or Tomino's Hell, is a poem by Seijo Yasuo, which became famous thanks to its supposedly cursed Hades. Published in 1919, the author, Yasuo, who was predominantly a children's writer, drafted the poem after experiencing losses in his own family, namely, that of his sister and father. That sense of grief permeated into the poem's subject matter. It tells the story of Tomino and his voyage into Yegoku, the realm of hell where those with grave sins may be reborn after paying penance. He ventures as far as Muga Nigoku of Ichi, the deepest of the hells, a place where torments are so unending, lasting countless eons, that souls appear condemned to eternal suffering. This place awaits those guilty of the 5 gravest sins in Buddhism, creating division within the Buddhist monastic community, spilling the blood of a Buddha, killing an enlightened being, or taking the life of one's own mother or father. It's an ambiguous text, one that even native speakers have trouble wrapping their heads around. Though Yasuo never explained the exact meaning behind his poem, if read literally, then we can assume that the title character, Tomino, took the life of one or both of his parents and is paying the price for his betrayal in the afterlife. But read it metaphorically, as the poem's translator David Bowles and others suggest, and it could describe the poet's intense emotional turmoil over the loss of his real-life family members, drawing a parallel between his survivor's guilt and descent into the abyss. And some scholars say that those interpretations miss the double meaning of the poem's kanji, and that it's actually an allegory for war, with Tomino being a soldier who dies on the battlefield. According to certain corners of the internet, it's perfectly safe to read the poem in your head, but if you read it out loud, then a quote, "terrible fate will befall you, be that a death in the family, a lifetime of bad luck, or the loss of one's own soul." The story used to be very popular on Wakkanao, particularly so. The internet's filled with stories of people reading the poem aloud and then suddenly unmysteriously passing away, some in car wrecks, others from illness. Several forum users have reported feeling an eerie presence around them after reading the poem, only for their accounts to then turn permanently inactive. Rumors of the curse apparently predate the internet. In 1983, for example, acclaimed Japanese filmmaker Shuji Terayama died of liver failure at the age of 47, with many fans linking his premature demise to the poem he so revered, a poem which inspired his movie, Pastoral, To Die in the Country. With that backstory out of the way, I'd be a fool to read the poem out loud for you all now, wouldn't I all know? Oh, the things I do for you guys. If you don't hear from me again, you'll know why. This is Tomino's Hell. Elder sister vomits blood, younger sister's breathing fire, while sweet little Tomino just spits up his soul. All alone, Tomino goes falling into that hell, a hell of utter darkness where flowers never bloom. Is Tomino's big sister the one who whips him? The purpose of the scourging weighing heavy on his mind, lashing and thrashing him, but never quite shattering. One short path to Avicii, the eternal hell. Would you request guidance into that blackest of hells from the golden sheep, from the nightingale? How much did he put into that leather pouch to prepare for his trek to eternal damnation? Spring is coming to the valley, to the wood, to the spiraling chasms of blackest doom. The nightingale in her cage, the sheep aboard the wagon, and tears well up in the eyes of sweet little Tomino. Sing, O nightingale. In the vast, misty forest he screams. He only misses his sweet little sister. His wailing desperation echoes through perdition, and a buttercup opens its golden petals. Down past the 7 mountains and 7 rivers of ruin, the solitary journey of sweet little Tomino. If in this hell they be found, may they then be brought down. Those sharp spikes of punishment from high on Needle Mountain, not just on some empty whim is flesh pierced with blood-red pins. They serve as hellish signposts that lead to sweet Tomino, It's a chilling poem whichever way you interpret it, though not as deadly as some claim. I narrated that segment over a week ago, and I'm still kicking. Whoever did create the urban legend was most likely inspired by the chainmail craze of the early 90s, given that the myth didn't really take off until 2004. What I find far more disturbing than Tomino's hell itself is the image that's become synonymous with it. But not for the reasons you probably expect. It's actually a cropped version of the Yuko Totsushima painting, I Can No Longer Be a Bride. This self-portrait was reportedly created after the artist was sad, and depicts how Yuko viewed herself after the incident. The fake smile, thousand-yard stare, and elongated neck reflect her state of mind, while the title of the piece reflects a cultural belief in Japan, where female victims of Saw often face challenges with finding a husband, most being perceived as unclean and impure. So while the image has since become associated with Yasuo's poem and might appear creepy at first, with proper context, it becomes more than that, both uncanny and heartbreaking. For those interested in seeing Yuko's other work, much of it can be found on her website, Underground Fortress. Learning about the origin of the Tomino image, I'm reminded of the White House G, IFG. A couple of years back, I investigated the origin of this little animation, only to discover that it had much darker roots than anyone imagined. It was made using the photo of murder victim Riko Takamura, and much like I Can No Longer Be a Bride, it's another example of the internet taking an image related to a tragedy and using it to create a cheap scare. Speaking of the White House GIF, I have a little update to make. Recently, this higher resolution photo of Riko was found by GutSpaceF over on the LazyMasquerade Discord server. It comes from the elusive book that I mentioned at the end of the video. In 2023, an unsettling video began making the rounds on TikTok. By video in reality, it was a simple slideshow composed of 3 frames, but that's all it took to capture the internet's attention. Microsoft used Bill Gates' mugshot as an outline for the default profile, like on Outlook in 2010. Face PNG found on a singular copy of the Microsoft trivia tape. The backstory to Gates' face is actually based in reality. Well, sort of. It's true that Microsoft did use the outline of old Billy Boy's mugshot as the basis for Outlook's default profile picture. He'd been arrested in 1977 for a traffic violation, and looking at a side-by-side, it obviously is his silhouette. As for the part about this PNG being found on a copy of the Microsoft trivia tape, well, that part was predictably a work of fiction. Hundreds of thousands of people viewed this new analog horror story, and its associated image quickly became a staple of PNG nightmare fuel. The comment section of the TikTok was flooded to the brim with users saying how uncomfortable the image made them feel and how they had never seen it before. Problem was, the TikTok that made this image famous was actually a roidload, one that didn't credit the original creator. So where had Gates' face, PNG, come from? Who had made it? And what had they used as the basis for the image? One of the people with those questions swirling around their brain was fellow YouTuber Dom. He was actually one of the first to investigate where the image originated, digging through Google for clues that might lead to its creator. At the time, Googling the terms Microsoft Gates Face PNG, Gates Face Creepypasta, Gates CRG, and other variations didn't yield any answers. Reddit, Twitter, Instagram. And yes, even 4chan were all dead ends too, with only a few other netizens even questioning the picture's origin, let alone shedding light on it. Though the PNG was getting a lot of online traction, it was mostly being posted by people saying, "Check out this creepy pic," or more creative types attaching their own lore to it. Dom tried using reverse image search tools, but again, no luck. The only results that came back were unrelated black and white faces that bore a passing resemblance to Gates' face at best. But one result that did seem to be returned time and time again was Jeff the Killer. For those who haven't been following the search for JTK's origin, the most famous incarnation of Jeff is actually the last in a very long line of edits, with the original photo currently being lost to media. Could Gates' face be yet another edit of the Jeff image? Well, on the surface, that didn't make much sense, given that Gates was far more realistic than Jeff. It wasn't your typical Photoshop job, but the facial expression and pose were uncannily similar. Seemingly out of options, Dom felt like the origin of Gates' face was doomed to be forgotten. But just when hope was dwindling, he received a lead in the form of a random TIKTOK comment. The user claimed that Gates' face was an AI image generated from Jeff the Killer prompts. But after the user, Dom was sent this image, which strongly resembled the Gates face PNG. It obviously wasn't a perfect match, but was apparently from the same collection of AI-generated images as Gates' face was, being the same character it uploaded using the same prompts. Anna was able to link Dom to Wanted at 7. A TIKTOK sound where users dropped their AI-generated horror creations. Browsing through the archive, he noticed that one slideshow stood out, created by user Mockerman. The collection was titled Jeff the Killers, and there, on the third slide, is a very familiar-looking face. Given the caption, we can safely assume that Mockerman used an AI model to generate some ghoulish Jeff. Yes. This particular image, which was posted to his account on June 14, 2023, was but one of hundreds. It's since been confirmed that the original Gates face video was posted to TIKTOK by user Game5, who modified the image to create the PNG we've all come to know. They then attached it to their analog horror story, which went live on June 16th, 2 days after the original appeared on Mockerman's account. It was then re-uploaded and spread like wildfire. In a sense, the conclusion to this mystery is kind of sad, don't you think? It seems we're moving into an age where, thanks to AI, our favorite spooky PNs don't really have any roots at all. Gone are the days of the collaborative make-cute origins. I have a feeling that in the coming years, internet horror images are going to become a lot more lifelike, but a lot more lifeless. Regardless, thanks to Dom's tenacious search, the origin of Gates' face, TNG has been found. His video on the subject is extremely well put together and definitely worth checking out. Had he not put so much effort into tracking it down so early into the image's creation, then Gates' face, PNG may well have gone the way of Jeff the Killer, with its origin becoming just another speck in the ocean of internet content out there, somewhere, but impossible to find. But instead, we can safely put the mystery surrounding Gates' face to bed and hope he doesn't come to visit us in ours tonight. I'm sure you're all well acquainted with this default face, whether you want to be or not. Though a relatively new inductee into the cursed image pantheon, it's quickly become a staple of analog horror, having already featured in a plethora of creepypastas, SCP stories, and ARGs. Though, perhaps it's best known for being the avatar of Pinhead, a character in the Roblox horror comedy experience Nico's Next Bots, where players get chased around by the screaming PNs of internet anomalies. The Next Bot wiki describes Pinhead as, quote, having no pigmentation hair, lips, or eyebrows. Its skin is pale and it has dead eyes surrounded by dim shadows. It also has a convex nose and a large smiling mouth with blood coming out of it. In the old version, he's brighter. But, as players are well aware, the images used for the Next Bots themselves are all taken from various corners of the internet and include the likes of Celine Delgado and the aforementioned Doll Thing, that strongly suggests that Pinhead was sourced from elsewhere. Reverse image searches turn up hundreds of re-uploads, but where it seems to have begun gaining traction is through a YouTube video uploaded by BroGL. In his video titled Don't Fall Asleep in the Backrooms, BroGL explains his original concept for Entity 800 the Tito, aka Pinhead. This seems to be where one Nico Pate, the creator of Nico's Next Bots, ripped both the image and the character's name. Uploaded in May 2022, BroGLY's video makes extensive use of this image, with the description stating that the entity was custom-made, but that statement refers to the story and not the associated image. In July 2021, 10 months before the BroGLY video, Reddit user and artist Ash IP posted this image to the Trevor Henderson subreddit. This is clearly the unedited, original image that serves as the basis for Pinhead. It's much larger and far more detailed than the Jeff that we've all come to know. The image is marked as original content, so we can safely say that Ash IP is the creator of the image that would come to be known as Pinhead. Browsing through Ash IP's profile, it's clear that they're a huge fan of the game Dead by Daylight, and I can't help but wonder whether this piece was an attempt at designing their own antagonist. Regardless, their image received hundreds of upvotes and began spreading to other subreddits the following day. We can assume then that someone, Perhaps Bro GLY or one of his editors found the image, applied some filters, and lowered the resolution to give it an analog horror aesthetic, then used it as the basis for Entity 800 the Tito. Nico Pate then further edited the image and inserted it into Nico's next box. This edit then began saturating the net through horror memes and docs, haunting social media networks across the globe. Today, it stands shoulder to shoulder with the internet's most recognizable scary monsters and super creeps, and will likely be sticking around for a while as regular viewers of this channel know. An eerie number of cases seem to take place in quiet little towns, and today's first entry is no exception. LazyMasquerade, Argentina, a community of about 20,000 residents, a peaceful place far removed from the violence often seen in larger cities, the perfect place for a kid to grow up. On the afternoon of June 29th, 2023, 14-year-old Joaquin Sparoni rode his bike to school as per usual, though strangely didn't attend any of his classes. Instead, he left the premises with his lifelong best friend, a 13-year-old known only as L. The two boys had been close since elementary school, and their families often spent time together. That previous year, L had requested a school transfer so he could spend more time with his closest companion. Joaquin was an introverted soul who had few other friends and who was often the target of bullies, and so naturally, he was over the moon with L's decision. That lunch break, the pair were captured by a local resident's security camera, walking side by side in the opposite direction of the school. This still shows them smiling and laughing. Unbeknownst to all but one person, it would be the last image captured of Joaquin alive. Minutes later, that same camera caught footage of L returning to school grounds alone. He re-entered his classroom and sat in his usual spot. His classmates noted that he behaved normally, playing and laughing throughout the rest of the day. When Joaquin didn't return home that evening, his parents contacted the school's headmaster. When they learned that their son hadn't even attended any of his classes, the Sparons immediately reported him missing. Investigators quickly found Joaquin's bicycle, which was still chained up outside the school. Yet there was no trace of the boy anywhere. After talking with members of staff, one eagle-eyed teacher mentioned that their student L had been using a different cell phone to the one he typically carried. L was questioned by detectives shortly thereafter, and they quickly determined that the boy's new cell phone was actually Joaquin's. The case had been painted in an effort to disguise it. L claimed that Joaquin had given him the phone as a present before running away from home, apparently fed up with the school bullies. Frustrated with what they considered to be passive police work, the missing boy's neighbors and family members took to the streets and conducted their own investigation. On Sunday, July 2nd, a search party entered an abandoned house on 480 Sarmiento Street, just 100 meters from the school. One member recalled what they found. "We were walking with two of Joaquin's cousins when we passed an abandoned house. We went inside and as soon as we entered, we saw the corpse. The cousins started screaming. It was like a horror movie." After discovering the body, L confessed that he and Joaquin had gone to the house together. They had apparently gotten into an argument there. A fight broke out, and L killed Joaquin in self-defense. Thing is, Joaquin had suffered 18 blows to the head. At the crime scene, police found an iron pipe and a piece of concrete, both stained with blood. A lack of defensive wounds suggested that Joaquin had actually been caught unawares and struck from behind. Certain that there hadn't been any argument and that Joaquin's murder was actually premeditated, officers conducted a search of L's house. In the young boy's room, they found a stuffed animal with a piece of paper hidden inside, a note which bore Joaquin's name and that of another boy, along with the unsettling message, "Mum will soon forget about this." This discovery led Joaquin's family to fear that another classmate may have been L's next intended victim. Due to his age, L couldn't be prosecuted in Argentina. He was held in a juvenile detention center for 3 months before being released to live with his family. He'll face no further consequences for his actions. In the minds of many local residents, it's only a matter of time before he indulges in his twisted fantasies once again. Maintaining a good work-life balance can be challenging, especially when you're swamped with multiple projects. When I first started this channel, for instance, there never seemed to be enough hours in the day. But today's sponsor, Stamps.com, helped me to reclaim a lot of that precious time. Stamps.com is like a 24/7 post office in your pocket, streamlining all of your postage needs so you can focus on what really matters. With Stamps, You can handle mailing and shipping wherever you are, even on the go. All you need is a computer and a printer. They even send you a free scale to get started. Scheduling package pickups is a breeze through the stats. Calm dashboard. And they automatically tell you the cheapest and fastest shipping options from different carriers. It seamlessly connects with every major marketplace and shopping cart, giving you access to the USPs and UP services you need anytime, day or night. But my favorite thing about Stamps is the crazy discounts you can't find anywhere else. Up to 89% off USPs and UPs rates, whether you're a small business owner or running a multi-location organization. Sign up at Stamps. Calm LazyMasquerade for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, free postage, and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps. Calm LazyMasquerade. Shrouded in secrecy. North Korea remains one of the most enigmatic places on Earth. The rogue nation has long been a magnet for the morbidly curious, in large part because our all-powerful leaders have such a tight grip over their subjects. They have full control over what people can and can't say, how they can and can't style their hair, even over who can and can't exist. One of the few ordinary North Koreans to improve their lot in life was Woo In-hee. Born in Kishon, her exact date of birth remains a mystery, though it's believed she was born either in the late 1930s or early 1940s. Described by her family as a selfless, bubbly girl who loved to dance, a young In-hee spent the Korean War helping her relatives scrape by and came close to losing her life several times as bombs struck her hometown. That tough childhood instilled in her a desire to live in the moment and chase her dreams, and so after the conflict, In-hee moved to Pyongyang to pursue a career as an actress. Her charisma and good looks served her well, and just 1 year after arriving in the capital, In-hee landed the lead role in The Tale of Chunhya, catapulting her to instant stardom. She went on to feature in dozens of successful films, including The Girl from Diamond Mountain, a movie in which she portrayed a character through all the stages of her life, from childhood to old age. In-hee received numerous awards, was honored with the prestigious title of the People's Actress, and was considered by many to be the most beautiful woman in the Hermit Kingdom. With a curvy figure, a round face, and a girl-next-door charm, her remarkable achievements drew the personal interest of many powerful individuals, not least the future Supreme Leader, Kim Jong-il. At that time, Kim was the second most powerful man in the country, just behind his father, and being both a fan of In-hee's work and beauty, Kim granted her the rare privilege of traveling to Czechoslovakia to study acting. In-hee would go on to marry Yoo Ho-sung, the most renowned movie director in the park, and together the pair had 3 sons. They also had what we'd now call an open relationship, with In-hee becoming involved with a number of her work colleagues. By the late 1970s, rumors about her many affairs had spread widely, leading to her workmates confronting her during a mutual criticism session, whatever that is session. In-hee defiantly pointed out that many of her accusers were themselves involved in affairs, making them hypocrites and no better than her. What followed this session can only be described as a monumental fall from grace. In-hee was stripped of her title as the People's Actress, blacklisted by the industry, and since she was effectively owned by the studio, was assigned a punishing job tending the boiler room for 12 hours each day. In 1979, In-hee was unexpectedly allowed to return to acting and was even cast in leading roles again. Coincidentally, it was around that time that she began a new affair with her secret admirer, one Kim Jong-il. It's widely believed that in exchange for her body, Kim offered to restore In-hee's career. In-hee did agree to Kim's proposal, though in reality it's hard to know whether their relationship was consensual. After all, refusing the heir apparent would have likely meant death or, even worse, life in a labor camp. Taking one look at this potato, I'm more inclined to believe that In-hee felt forced into the deal. Well, willingly or not, In-hee would covertly meet with Kim at his request. Once he was satisfied, Kim would remind In-hee to keep her lips firmly sealed. Nobody could know that their future leader was an adulterer. Well aware of the potential consequences if she blabbed, In-hee promised to never speak a word of their affair, not even to her own husband, Ho-sung. To be on the safe side, Kim had another actor shadow her and report on her activities. She would be monitored for the rest of her life. After her relationship with Kim, In-hee fell madly in love with a young Zainichi Korean who had moved to the park for work. She was initially hesitant to date the man, fearful of what may happen if Kim were to find out. But the Zainichi eventually won her over, since it was too risky to meet in public. They spent their time together driving around in his Mercedes. In the winter of 1980, the pair were discovered in that same car. The engine was running, and they were both suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. The man was pronounced dead at the scene. His name has never been made public, and he miraculously survived and spent 2 weeks recovering in hospital. She was approached by the police while still in a disoriented and distraught state and was subsequently forced to give a witness statement, in which she let slip her belief that Kim Jong-il had tried to have her killed, citing their past romance as the motive. In her mind, Kim was either too jealous to let her move on, or feared that she would eventually make their affair public knowledge. Trouble was, she just had, after being held for several weeks in an undisclosed prison, and he was told that she was free to go. Smiling, she was led through a set of heavy-duty doors, ones that didn't lead onto the street, but rather onto the Kangon shooting grounds. Before she could ask any questions, he was tied to a post in front of a crowd of 6,000 spectators. In the front row was Kim Jong-il. He had ordered he to be executed for revealing details about their affair. 12 gunmen then fired 10 rounds, each at her from their AK-47 seconds, mutilating her body beyond recognition. Her husband, Ho-sun, was forced to witness the proceedings. Following her death, Kim annulled he and Ho-sun's marriage and forced the bereaved husband to star in the propaganda film Unsung Heroes. The 6,000 attendees who had been forced to watch the event were all ordered to remain silent, for if they spoke about what they had seen, they would face the same fate as he. Despite that warning, the incident soon became common knowledge, in an effort to destroy not only her body but also any evidence of her existence. His name and image was systematically erased from magazines and film catalogs, and she was edited out of the films that she had starred in. In some cases, her scenes were reshot with a different actress, and in others, her scenes were deleted entirely, rendering their plots incomprehensible. Given that she only enjoyed fame within North Korea, Kim Jong-il's erasing of he was hugely successful, with later generations believing her existence to be nothing more than a myth. Indeed, this once household name may well have been deleted from the annals of history had director Shin Sang-ok not managed to smuggle a photo of her out of the country. Sang-ok was a South Korean who was abducted by Kim Jong-il in 1978 and forced to make movies for him. But the wily filmmaker refused to let Kim have the last laugh. He made secret audio recordings of his conversations with Kim which further exposed his tyrannical nature. Then thankfully Sang-ok was able to escape the country in 1996 with his wife. In 1988, he released a book titled The Kingdom of Kim Jong-il. It was published in South Korea and Japan. One section tells the story of Woo and he, and that page's accompanying picture, a still frame from the tale of Chun-ya, is one of the last images of the actress that exists today. As you can probably guess from his name, Count Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès came from an aristocratic family, this lineage including musketeers and even a castle in central France. Born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he rubbed shoulders with other noble children while growing up in Versailles, a wealthy suburb of Paris and the former haunt of kings and queens. Xavier met his future wife, Agnes, in the early 1980s when he was 20 and she was 17. Though not as high-born as Xavier, Agnes came from a traditional, conservative background and held many of the same values as him. The pair quickly fell in love, however. The adventurous Xavier wanted to explore new horizons while he was still young. Thus he broke up with Agnes and left to travel the world, a decision he soon came to regret. 1 year later, he returned to Versailles to find that Agnes was pregnant with another man's child. To his family's surprise, Xavier chose to marry Agnes and adopt her child, Arthur, giving him the prestigious Dupont de Ligonnès name. Marrying an unwed mother was nearly unheard of in Versailles at the time, but the couple went on to build a loving family in the city of Nantes, welcoming 3 more children into the world: Thomas, Anne, and Benoit. In 2011, the family were living at 55 Robert Schumann Boulevard, a modest house in an upper-middle-class neighborhood. Xavier was known to be a devoted father who was deeply involved in his children's lives. They were all enrolled in either prestigious universities or private schools, and from the outside looking in, the Dupontes were living the perfect privileged life. Yet despite keeping up appearances, Xavier was harboring a dark secret. His wealth was quickly running out. Having always relied on the family's coffers growing up, he had never had to make his own living, so now as a fully grown man, he had no idea how to. When asked what he did for work, he'd describe himself as a salesman, though always stayed vague with the details. He had started numerous businesses over the years, that much was true, but none of them had been successful. Between 2001 and 2011, he was in a quote downward spiral of failure and was being hounded by debt collectors. This was playing havoc on the now middle-aged man's mind. Concerned, Agnes took to the online medical chat forum Dr. Simo, where she described how Xavier had suddenly commented, "A group death, as a family wouldn't be a catastrophe. Ominous." At around 2:00 p.m. on April 11th, 2011, a neighbor noted that the DuPont family's house, which was typically full of life and noise, had been eerily silent for about a week. She tried to peer through the windows, but the shutters had been pulled. A note on their letterbox read, "Return all mail to sender." All of the family's cars were still outside the house, except for their Citroen C5. But if they'd gone on holiday, she thought, that vehicle wouldn't have been large enough to carry all 6 family members, their 2 Labradors, and their luggage. Over the next 2 days, that same neighbor observed the house and grew increasingly concerned, prompting her to contact the police. On April 13th, officers arrived to investigate. Everything appeared normal inside the residence, though some of the beds had their sheets removed and a few closets were open. The police initially believed that the family had left voluntarily and saw no immediate cause for alarm. The following day, several friends and relatives received letters from Xavier and Agnes, ones which read, "As you know, I've had connections with the US. The Americans have recruited me to infiltrate an international drug ring. This will be difficult. You won't see us for a long while as we're going to change our identities, be under protection, and won't be reachable at all." Now that was ominous. However, due to Xavier's esteemed status, many of his frankly eccentric loved ones believed the story outlined in the letter to be true. Agnes's family was far more skeptical. They forwarded the letter to the district attorney, adamant that she would have never left without calling them. The police returned to the family home for more times to conduct a more thorough investigation, but noticed nothing particularly suspicious aside from some missing items. However, during their 6th visit on April 21st, a lieutenant discovered something under the terrace in the garden, large plastic trash bags bound with tape bags. Inside the bags were several bodies wrapped in blankets and duvets. One grave contained Agnes, Arthur, and Benoit, and the family dogs. Thomas's body was found in a separate hole. Xavier was nowhere to be found. Though the exact date is contested, it's believed that Agnes, Arthur, Anne, and Benoit were all slain in the early hours of April 4th. Later that day, Xavier called his son Thomas at university and told him, "Your mother's had a cycling accident. She's in the hospital in a coma. We don't know if she'll come out of it. You'll have to come home." Upon his return, Xavier took Thomas out for dinner to discuss matters. Waiters at that restaurant recalled that near the end of their meal, Thomas had become noticeably sick. An autopsy revealed that all of the children had sleeping pills in their systems, so it's possible Xavier had slipped a sedative into his son's drink. The victims were found in their pajamas, suggesting that they were ill while sleeping in their beds. Strangely, there was no trace of blood in any of the bedrooms, nor in the living room, the foyer, or the bathroom. When crime scene investigators collected samples, they found no fingerprints or DNA on anyone. All 5 of them had been shot twice in the head with a .22 caliber rifle, though strangely again, none of their neighbors reported hearing loud bangs during the night. 3 months before the murders, Xavier's father had passed away. His dad, too, had blown all of his money. But Xavier took it upon himself to clear out his father's apartment, perhaps in search of some valuables that he could sell. While doing so, he discovered his father's .22 caliber rifle. Prior to inheriting it, he'd shown no interest in weapons at all. After acquiring it, however, he began learning how to shoot. He even took 2 of his sons to the range, where he asked the instructor several questions, including one about using a silencer. Needless to say, Xavier was determined to be the prime suspect in the familicide. An international arrest warrant was issued for him, and detectives began scouring hotels and restaurants across France. Experts were able to build a timeline of events leading up to the slayings, one which highlighted just how thorough Xavier had been in his preparations. He closed all of the family's bank accounts, bought a shovel and several bags of lime from different stores, had terminated Agnes's employment, and enrolled his children from their respective schools and colleges. After the family's lives ended, Xavier remained in the house for a week before going on the run, bouncing from hotel to hotel. On April 22nd, they found the missing man's car in the parking lot of a Formula One hotel in Roquebrune-Surrey, Argens. After poring through the building's security footage, they came across something disturbing: the last known images of Xavier Dupont, captured on April 15th as he was checking out of the hotel. The footage showed him walking away into the wilderness, looking back as if to acknowledge the camera. This still was released to the public. So what happened to Xavier? Well, it's worth noting that the area he was last seen in is surrounded by cliffs and mountains, leading many to believe that Xavier ended his own existence there. The police spent several weeks searching holes, caves, and crevices in the area but found no trace of the aristocrat anywhere. Some people speculate that Xavier outwitted everyone and successfully escaped overseas. In most cases of familicide, the perpetrator typically ends their own life on the spot, not a week and a half later. Xavier put considerable effort into deceiving the investigators at the crime scene, perhaps to buy himself more time. Some believe he managed to trick them twice, first by cleverly hiding his family's remains and then by making it appear as if he had leapt from a cliffside. Records show that he didn't purchase any plane or train tickets in his own name, but Xavier could have easily taken a boat or used the highway or mountain path to reach Italy. He was multilingual and cosmopolitan and could easily have started life anew in a foreign country. He was of average height and had no strong facial features, and would have found it simple to blend in near most anywhere. Other people, like Xavier's sister Christine, are adamant that the bodies found under the terrace weren't actually Agnes and the Dupont children. In 2012, she told the media, Xavier and his family left for the United States because their safety was threatened in France. The bodies found under the patio can't be those of Agnes and the children. Though that theory does sound outlandish, it is strange that the victims' remains were cremated extremely quickly, just a few short days after they had been discovered and examined. There were also supposed discrepancies between the heights and weights of the victims found at the home and those of the family members. Though the bodies shared the same common DNA, no samples were compared with the living members of the Dupont family to confirm their identities. That could all be chalked up to police incompetence, but several witnesses, including the family's neighbors and friends, attest that they had either seen or been in contact with Agnes and the children 4 or 5 days after they had supposedly been slain. Employing Occam's razor, the authorities' working theory remains that Xavier did kill his family in order to save face. He was known to be a vain and proud man who would do anything to avoid being exposed as a failure, and they believe he wanted to prevent his children from discovering that he was broke. He then either ended himself in the wilderness or jumped into the sea. In October 2019, a man suspected of being Xavier was arrested at Glasgow Airport in Scotland. His fingerprints partially matched Xavier's, but DNA testing confirmed he wasn't the missing aristocrat. Despite 900 other alleged sightings, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès has never been found. Today, over a decade after vanishing, he remains a wanted suspect.